The wind howled through the Hindu Kush, dragging ancient whispers through jagged peaks and broken stones, secrets of empires buried beneath Afghan dust, waiting to be remembered again. This is a land carved by mountains, war, and time. Every conqueror came with dreams of glory, only to vanish in the shadows, swallowed by a land too wild to bow and too proud to forget. This is Afghanistan, a place where legends breathe, where the dust remembers names the world has forgotten, and where history writes its stories in fire and stone. Long before it was called Afghanistan, this land was already ancient, its valleys, alive, the footsteps of tribes, and the pulse of civilizations that rose and fell in silence. 5,000 years ago, nomads crossed these lands, Aryan tribes, wandering through snow-bitten trails and high passes, drawn to something eternal in the mountain's breath. The Aryans made this land their home, carving roads through cliffs, birthing languages, myths, and gods beneath skies that watched silently for centuries. Then rose Bactria, the land of gold and stories, fertile, powerful, mysterious.
Ice.
Its cities gleamed in the desert sun, echoing with trade, worship, and the scent of old-world dreams. Even Alexander the Great paused at its gates, stunned by a land that didn't break beneath his sword. Here he found not just resistance but wonder, beauty, and untamed soul. From these valleys came Gandhara, place where mountains cradled art and caves held peace. Sculptors shaped serenity in stone, and monks filled the air with whispered truths. Buddhism thrived in the silence, in carved statues, golden stupas, and winding paths where souls searched for enlightenment, amid the roar of rivers and rustle of wind. But stillness does not last in these lands. The desert wind shifted again, bringing the thunder of hooves and the rising call of a new faith that changed everything. Islam. From Ghazni rose warriors wrapped in purpose, the Ghaznavids. Their blades cut through borders, carrying the weight of a civilization and the fire of an idea. They stormed into India, not just with steel, but with culture, poetry, and law. They planted roots far beyond mountains and left behind mosques, palaces, and memory. There the Ghurids rose from the ashes, stronger and crueler. They expanded empires on the backs of fire and prayer, turning conquest into legacy through vision and force. But the East stirred. A storm darker than any before rolled in an unstoppable tide of blood and smoke. The Mongols had come, and nothing would ever be the same again. Led by Genghis Khan, they tore through cities like wildfire. Everything burned: books, lives, temples. Rivers turned red, and silence followed their terrifying march. Afghanistan was left in ashes. Yet, from destruction, beauty bloomed again. The Timurids emerged not just conquerors, but artists with dreams woven into silk and stone. In Samarkand and Herat, they built more than empires. They raised domes that touched the stars, painted walls with poetry, and turned broken cities into timeless marvels. As centuries turned, new eyes looked west. The British came not with respect, but with maps, lies, and empire on their lips. They thought Afghanistan could be tamed. 3 Anglo-Afghan wars proved them wrong. The mountains devoured redcoats. Forts fell. Plans shattered. Each time the British left humiliated, bleeding, and broken in spirit. They called it a savage place, but it was merely sovereign. No map could hold it, no treaty could chain it, and no king could crown it from afar. The 20th century brought new ideas: reform, kingship, and a hunger to modernize. But the Cold War turned Afghanistan into a pawn, a battlefield of ideologies. In 1979, the Soviets invaded, iron and fire pouring through ancient passes. They sought control, but found resistance stronger than their machines. From caves and valleys, the Mujahideen rose, clad in tradition, driven by purpose, and armed by the world. They fought with mountains at their backs and faith in their hearts. 10 brutal years echoed with gunfire. The Soviet Union collapsed beneath the weight of Afghan defiance and the burden of a war it could never win or understand. But victory didn't bring peace. The land was shattered, warlords' ruins, hunger and hope twisted together. From this chaos emerged a new shadow: the Taliban. They promised order. They brought silence. But it was a silence filled with fear, controlled by violence, and wrapped in a version of faith that choked the breath of the people. Then came 9/11 sand. Once again, the mountains shook. The Americans came not with dreams, but with drones, dollars, and a desire for revenge and regime change. For 20 years, Afghanistan became a theater of war, diplomacy, and failed nation-building. Cities grew, but so did graveyards. Roads paved, yet blood spilled. Billions were spent. Generations shattered. And in the end, the world watched as helicopters fled, and the Taliban returned not defeated, but reborn. Empires had come and gone. The British, the Soviets, the Americans, all brought might, all brought promises. It's all left with scars and stories of failure. Afghanistan remains, scarred, proud, unbroken. Its soil held every flag, buried every empire, and still whispered to the sky, "You may fight here, but you will never own me." Its people are mountain-blooded, born from dust, survival, and poetry. Their eyes have seen collapse and courage. Their hearts carry centuries of defiance. This is not just a battlefield, it is a mirror. It reflects every empire's arrogance, every nation's ambition, and every generation's hope. Will it ever see peace? Can this land that breaks empires finally be healed? Or is it doomed to remain the crucible where powers test their pride? No one knows. But the wind still howls through the Hindu Kush, carrying the same whisper. Come if you must, but don't expect to leave unchanged.